So welcome to tonight's book club on Too Late to Die Young by Harriet McBryde Johnson. There's 3 of us here right now. I'm hoping more people will show up. TK was just saying that he had the opportunity to speak with Harriet McBryde Johnson over the phone. And so he's going to explain that. And go ahead, TK. Sorry about that.
Well, sorry about starting without the recording. So as I was saying, I used to co-host a radio show that was on here in New York City for about 15 years. The show was called The Largest Minority. And so I had the opportunity to interview her. So I did a little bit of a pre-interview. I called her office, and her executive assistant or secretary, whatever you call her, answered the phone. And I was kind of nervous. So I started out very formal because the secretary was like, okay, I will put Attorney Johnson on the phone. So she made it sound like she's a very Southern formal person. So I didn't want to presume that I could call her Harriet. Like in New York, it's not uncommon for an attorney to refer to another attorney by their first name, unless you really want to be obnoxious, something like that, So, I started and I said, by the way, what should I call you, Miss Johnson, Attorney Johnson? And she goes, oh, please call me Harry. And she was very warm and friendly, and I was interviewing her about not the book, but about the article that she had written in the New York Times magazine.
Unspeakable Conversation?
Yeah, exactly. And I've been involved with Not Dead Yet for years and years, and she was, the whole article in the Times magazine was about her confronting Peter Singer up in Princeton. And I was actually at the Princeton, there was a big Not Dead Yet fight, rally against Peter Singer there, and I was there for that as well. So it was just great. And I worked really, really, really hard on the interview. And so it was my first interview that I ever did on the radio. And I prepared probably for a week for this 20-minute interview. And it went perfectly. And the guy that was sort of hosting the show, I was just doing this one segment for the show at the time. He goes, wow, you're really good. How did you learn how to do that? And basically, it's like doing a deposition. It's, if you know what you're doing, all you're really doing is trying to tell a story, and you have a limited amount of time. And I listened to enough radio that I was able to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And she was, really good.
Now, do you have a recording of that interview? Do you still have
it? I do somewhere. And when I find it, I will post it to the group or put it on the NMD webpage. I will find that eventually.
That's really cool. Do you have any questions? Oh, sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
What was the article about in the New York? Is it the Journal?
It was in the New York Times magazine.
No, it's actually
a
book. It's a chapter in the book. It's Unspeakable Conversations is in the book, and it's chapter 9.
Is that the whole article?
Yeah.
Or
it's probably almost the whole article.
No, it's actually more than that. There's actually a little added, maybe a little tiny bit added, because I read the article from the Times, and then I read it again in the book, and it was almost identical. So, but yeah, that was pulled from there. So, so that was the first time you had heard of her, was after that article in the Times, or did you hear about her through other?
No, I never heard about her through the Jerry's Orphans and the whole anti-telethon efforts. Because, she would be down in Charleston, South Carolina, just doing a one-person protest outside the TV station, and she might have maybe her one or two friends or one PA or something like that at the protest, and she would do it for a couple of hours, and then I was involved with people that were doing it all across the whole country. So I knew of her through that. And I think she had also written a couple of little articles for Mouth magazine, and I probably read something that she wrote there as well.
Do you,
I'm just. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious if either of you ever protested the telethon.
I did once.
Yeah.
I organized a protest at summer camp at MDA summer camp against media.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of us, and we were kind of in our early teens, and we figured out that Media Day was basically like I just started tying it all together and realizing that we were being kind of exploited for the whole reason we were sent to camp wasn't totally 100% for us to have a wonderful camp experience. It was more about let's get them all together so we can film them being pathetic.
Yeah.
What I did is I ruined it. I ruined Media Day. They came out with the cameras, and we all wore buttons that basically said like "fuck you" telethon, and like we had like we put our middle fingers up anytime the cameras came around, and we all got in a gigantic wagon and escaped into the woods. Like all the counselors helped us escape the media. And the media was like scrambling to get footage because they couldn't get any of us. It's like we were all refusing to do interviews and refusing any kind of cameras on us the whole day. And and so that was my first, and I didn't even realize that like there were other protests going on, you know, for against the telethon. Like I didn't know any of you guys, anybody existed. I was just a kid, but I knew it was wrong. And that was like so I was like had like a little inner activist in me when I was a little kid that I didn't even realize. So
yeah, that's great because I'll be honest, like when I was like, you know, early teenage years, like I didn't really realize how bad it was. In fact, I even volunteered to answer phones at the telethon one year, and then once I got into college and started taking more disability studies courses, and you know, with my major and everything, I started to realize like the whole other side of that. And so the book was really helpful in like bringing that up, and the fact that she was so just about so strongly against it and stood up for what she believed in.
Yeah. TK, you went to protest at telethon? You went to regular protests, right?
Well, I was just sort of involved with what happened was when I was in law school, I was sort of on the fence, and my good friend Chris Rosa was involved with MDA, and he said, "Oh, we're putting together this regional task force about to defend MDA." So I went to this regional support group meeting just because I knew Chris, and Chris was a good guy, and so I went once, and it was like a cult. It was like a cult group, you know. They were all talking about how great Jerry was in like this devotional religious tone, and it was really kind of creepy how they were there.
Oh, you told me about that.
Yeah, and so I said to Chris, "Look, Chris, I mean, we're gonna have to just agree to disagree. I can't come. I can never come back to this meeting. I mean."
Wait, now is Chris the board member that spoke at the rebranding meeting?
I didn't see the meeting, so I don't know if he spoke.
There was a board member named Chris that lived in New York, and he was in a chair and he spoke very, very well.
Is he both?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris lost his hair when he was like, well, I think Chris was bald by the time he was 23.
Well, maybe we're recording this, so you never know. He may watch this.
No, he's a good guy. He really is. I mean, Chris and I are good. We gone to baseball games together, and he and I were on the Silk together, and we spent many hours riding back and forth to Albany on the train. And he's really, really, really funny, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy, but he just happens to be wrong about NBA.
Gotcha.
You know, and his whole thing is they do more good than they do harm. And he goes, he acknowledges that Jerry was a problem, you know,
Right.
and Chris likes to get things done, and he is good. He's the
Is he in living with MD if he doesn't want to be in the group?
yeah, he's in the group.
Oh, okay.
He never contributes, but he's in the group.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. So look at there you are. Thanks for coming in on video.
Oh yeah, I just didn't know how to set it up. So Frank, my husband, set it up for me. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here. Nice to see you.
yeah.
Yay!
Yay. It's very nice. I wish more people would show up, but it's kind of a bummer. But I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna just kind of, I guess, touch on some questions. And if you feel like answering, you can. Did you see the presentation that I sent a link out to?
Is it on Facebook?
I can send it right now in the chat if you're interested. Or I can just share my screen, but I'll just share my
Would
screen.
be better.
Okay.
Yeah, sharing your screen would be better.
Okay. We'll share my screen.
By the way, I'm not going to be able to stick around too long.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks for contributing so far. So I guess, well, since it's just the three of us, I mean, it's not going to be that many things, but I guess I'll ask TK before he leaves, and what do you think that Harriet in the book celebrated about living life with an NMD? Like, was there anything about was there any moment in the book that you thought that showed that?
Oh gosh. I'll let you answer, TK, since you can't.
Well, I read the book 10 years ago, or whenever it came out. I read it like early on when it came out, so it's not completely fresh in my recollection. I would say that Harriet was very much a cross-disability advocate, so I think she would have appreciated living with MD in some ways, but she was very much her perspective was that the discrimination that people with disabilities experience is the same whether you have a neuromuscular disability versus CP or you know. So
I thought about that when I wrote the question. I thought, well, but I guess I was thinking about just the audience that we're talking to here. You know?
I would say that like the way she was so precise in like the things that she needed her like to be comfortable. I mean, like we talk about it taking us half an hour to get comfortable to go to sleep in bed because you gotta move your foot like an eighth of a millimeter to the right, and then you gotta have this pillow, and you gotta have that towel, and you gotta have this over there. No, that's over there. Move my hand forward. No, pull it back. Straighten that finger out. No, that finger. Straighten that finger. And what I recall from one of the interviews somewhere about her was that she drove the photographer absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That second to last essay about about that experience. And, you know, I really admire
not wanting her chair to be seen.
Yeah, and I love that where she said that the light was glowing and the joystick was like, you know, but I thought it was really cool because she really stood her ground and didn't want to be like exploited. And I feel like that a lot of that comes from that telethon stuff, you know, like where I think I highlighted it, but she says something like, you know, I gotta find it now. Oh man, hold on. I'm gonna go find it.
Well, I know I picked up on some of that. practice of dealing with the media. Because when I'm dealing with the media, I ask them to identify themselves, and then I tell them in advance, you're not going to refer to me as a wheelchair bound, and I give them the parameters of how they have to refer to me, and tell them what's acceptable versus what's not acceptable. And I kind of try to channel some of Harriet into just being a little bit obnoxious and being very precise and making the conversation interesting,
Mhm. Well, it was, she said, I like how she said they wanted her to get out of her wheelchair. And she said, well, because they thought she looked more powerful without her wheelchair. And she's like, but in my wheelchair, I can do everything. Like, that's where I am the most powerful.
And
So
that's
I loved that. I highlighted that piece.
and that's her body, and how that's her body, and how she, like it's such a part of her, like it is for all of us. And it's like to just ignore that is like, it's really hard to I don't know, it just really opened my eyes to what the media, how they can influence, and how they depict people with disabilities.
Oh yeah. And she said she thinks I'm more real without my wheelchair. It's incomprehensible to me. But I guess my relationship to my chair, my sense that appearing without it would be an unpardonable betrayal of my community, is equally incomprehensible to her. So I think that's really interesting too, that she thought so much about her community and like selling out in a sense by, trying to act like she wasn't, very disabled, or trying to like pretty it up,
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool. I also thought it was funny that she decided that when they told her not to smile, and and she's like trying to look like a vacant stare or whatever, like the models do, and she got kind of used to it, and she just kind of went like that, and they were like, oh, that's awesome. Anyway, it was funny. That was cool. I thought the end of the book really ramped up, like kind of starting when she fell in Cuba, and then it kind of went in unspeakable conversations, and then it went like it kind of flowed really nice, kind of the second half of the book. I didn't like all the politics stuff that she.
I didn't like that either. I mentioned it to you last night. I think I texted.
Oh,
you.
Her parents were like borderline
Yeah.
communist professors.
Yeah, I mean, it just was like, to me, I don't know. I guess I get it that Reagan was coming to her college and she wanted to like. I mean, I kind of get how it all fits in. I just kind of thought it was a little dry. I really enjoyed I liked the telephone stuff that she talked about. I liked it when she talked about when she first ran into Mike Irvin, and she was on like was it Phil Donahue or something? She was on some show where they talked that where she was featured as a protester or whatever. I thought that was really interesting. A couple essays in the beginning I liked the first essay where she kind of explains herself and stuff. But yeah, let's see.
Well, I found the part of the book where she goes to visit somebody in the rehab place. I found that interesting.
I'm trying to remember that part.
There's so much in the book; it's hard to remember.
I know, it's almost like we're
just
finished. I don't remember that part where she goes into the rehab. Are you sure that's in the book?
Yeah, no, I do vaguely remember it. She went in and met.
And they kind of parked her on the side, and then she had to get somebody at the nursing home to help her take a pee.
Yeah.
And she was afraid that she was going to get kept there at the nursing home, And I grew up in a rehab hospital for 9.5 years, so I kind of what she was describing was the way I grew up, So.
I don't remember that part for some reason, and I don't know why. That's so bizarre.
Wait, that might be in her other book.
Yeah, maybe. No, does she have another book? I thought she had like a child or like a young adult, like teen book.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I wanted to read it, so I read that also.
Okay. Maybe that's
I figured I'm very immature, so I could get away with it.
I should probably check that book out. So what like was there a part of the book that like specifically like made you see yourself?
Mm, a lot of the book,
Yeah.
I highlighted a lot of it, and now I'm going back, like trying to find. I should have written some of the passages down. A lot of well, okay, like a lot of the parts about well, talking about how you're when you're little, like how you're told you're not gonna live past a certain age, and she well, and everything with the Professor Singer, her talks and everything. It just made me think a lot about my experiences and how, like, when I was a kid, I remember, like, for example, my high school graduation, my grandma was like, "Oh, we never thought we'd see this day." Like, you know, that theme came up quite a bit, and like, I think I was either too young or too naive to like understand, but I could definitely relate. And also the idea about with the telethon every year, how they give you, they do the memoriam for the people who passed away, and although it's good to contribute, or I'm sorry, acknowledge those, passings and those people at the same time. That's the only focus of the telegram was like the negativity. And so again, when I was younger, I really didn't think about it as much, but now thinking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that, because like every year when the telethon would come around, I would be scared to watch the telethon and see if like some of my friends from camp had passed away, or just seeing that segment was very emotional for me.
Well, it's funny that you say that because somebody asked me, I was doing an interview on Dear Juliana the other day, and someone said, well, were you ever told as a kid that you would die young? And I said, well, every year when I watched the telethon, I was told by, Jerry Lewis that every single year that I would die young. So yeah, I was told it all the time. And it was funny because it kind of like this light bulb went off, and I thought about that, and I thought about what you just said about how I would dread turning it on because I would be afraid to see if I knew anybody that died.
Yeah.
And like I was so convinced that we were all going to be dead young that's why realizing that living with MD was out there and that there were so many. I thought there was like a rare thing that there would be people your age, TK, like out and about. And like when she talks about that when she meets Mike Irvin, she says, it was so weird to see somebody like myself. Like it was kind of a surreal experience for her. And I think
when I met Laura Hershey, that was a surreal experience for me, because she was like we joke about something with Rachel being my clone, but Laura was like a clone of me. It was amazing. I was like, oh my God, I'm looking at myself. Really, it was.
Yeah, no, it's really, that's kind of, I felt very many times as I was reading it, when she would describe her body or the way she moved, or like how she like when she fell out of her wheelchair and she said she kind of just had to figure out where her parts were. Like she didn't even know what part was which part. And I mean, that happens to me a lot where I just, like, I'll try to tell someone to move my leg and they'll be like, which leg? And I can't, like, I don't, it's weird. It's like, and then she was describing the way she was getting a bed bath and having this person that she do all of it. How she has moments where she wishes that she was alone, like what that, like wonders what that would be like to just be able to do it herself. And like I have that all the time where I'll just sit there and think like, what would it be like right now if I could just take a shower completely on my own, and not have these hands. And like, I don't know, just there were so many moments in the story where I was like, I felt like she was like here, like it's really trippy. Like I really thought like, I don't know how to explain it. Like she was speaking to me directly.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like she was speaking to just an audience. Like she was talking.
It was funny though. My mother recently read the book. I was cleaning out my apartment to get painting, and so I was packing my books back on the shelf, and she said, "Oh, I need something to read. Do you have any recommendations?" I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, here, read Harriet McBryde Johnson." So she read it, and she was just raving about it for 2 weeks. And she read the book, and she read it in a week probably. And she's like, I really feel like I know you better after having read this book. There's so much in the book that I see in you. And she's been pestering me to write a book for 2 months now. So, yeah, but it's nice because I was closer to my father than I am to my mother. And so my mother is sort of learning more about me through different avenues. And so that was kind of interesting.
I was thinking the same thing. Like I think I'm going to give it to my mother-in-law because she lives in South Carolina and goes to Charleston frequently. So I think she would enjoy it from that perspective of the Southern Belle and all the
Sure.
things they had to say. And then also just, I don't get to see her very often, maybe a couple of times a year. So I think it would help her relate more to my situation.
I gave it to my boyfriend's mother. I gave it to my dad's girlfriend, who's kind of like a stepmother to me. I gave it to, oh my God, I gave it to my boyfriend's aunt, who sends me inspiration porn every Christmas for the holidays. She always sends me a book that's very very Christian based and very inspirational about a person with a disability. And I was kind of like trying to stop her from doing that because I have a different perspective. So I sent her the book. I sent my best friend who has our disability. I sent her the book because I needed to talk about it with her. God, I've been buying this book for everybody and their mother. Like but the thing is, I don't know if these ladies are really gonna get it in the same way. So that made me feel better when T came.
My mother got it. She got it.
That's good. I'm hoping other people do too. And I hope they don't get kind of stuck on some of the more boring essays. I hope they kind of keep pushing on, because I'm afraid that some of those essays that aren't as strong in the beginning are going to kind of drag people out of the book, which I don't think is. I mean, maybe I'm crazy. I don't want to criticize. It's too wonderful to criticize. I really hate even saying anything.
Well,
My mother is not an intellectual by any means whatsoever. She enjoyed it from the beginning straight to the end.
Cool.
I agree, though. Some of the things in the beginning were just a little slow. I had a hard time, like, getting into it. And then, but I obviously knew I wanted to keep pushing at it and getting through it. So it sort of picked up towards the middle.
Well, and I think, like, there's things that she says also throughout the book that kind of, I didn't realize how, like, my thinking is changing so much and what I'm doing in my life is changing so much. But like NMD United and Dear Juliana, especially Dear Juliana, this I feel like she would have happily contributed a letter. I feel like she would have been really proud of this project. And so, like, I just felt like I felt her stamp of approval as I was reading it. Like, the things that she was saying, I knew that I was right on. And it really helped me kind of flesh out what what we were doing with it and where we were going with it. And so, I don't know, I just felt like this was a really perfect thing to read at the time, and it was really nice. She writes, for me, living a real life has meant resisting those formulaic narratives. Instead of letting the world turn me into a disability object, I have insisted on being a subject in the grammatical sense, not the passive me who is acted upon, but the active I who does things.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's awesome. Like the idea of letting us speak for ourselves and, not having anyone control our experience or like do for us, I just like that idea, the putting the I, making the I prominent. I don't know, she's just really, that was a really good book. I'm very happy.
Did you pick the book for the book club?
Yeah, kind of. I talked to Alana, and I asked Alana what would be a book that she would choose, like if she was, oh, there she is. Were your ears ringing, Alana? That's so funny. I was just talking about you. I just started talking about you, and you popped in.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was, she was asking me if I was the one who chose the book club idea, and I said that I had asked you if you could pick any books to recommend for me to start reading, like on disability rights, like what would you suggest? And TK, you had also suggested it supposedly in the past as well. I guess I wasn't listening to you, but I listened.
I'm sorry. What did you say? I wasn't listening to you.
And I credit Alana for getting me to actually read it, but
Emily listens to me more than you, TK.
Apparently,
I
don't have any credibility.
No, but you have to earn it, babe. You have to earn it.
I'll try to follow your lead.
It's great to see you. I'm so glad you came. It was supposed to be a bigger group, but I'm very sad because I don't know. I just don't know how you wouldn't want to talk about it after you're done reading it.
I wonder how many people have actually read it, though.
Yeah, I know. Lazies. Bunch of lazies, procrastinators.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a psychological kind of, like I was explaining, and I kind of wrote about yesterday, I got very emotional in it with the book, and I didn't want to stop. I didn't want it to stop because I knew she had died, and I was I just didn't want her to go away. And so I read the book so slowly because I was afraid of getting to the end, I think. And it was a hard read in a lot of the sense because I really wanted her here with us. Like, I really wanted her to be here with us. And then when Laura Hershey was mentioned, and I had heard her name, but I never really knew who she was. So then yesterday I was looking up her work, and I read an article about the telethon, and it was from poster child to protester. That was the name of the essay. And it was so creepy to me because I wrote an essay not knowing anything about that essay called From Poster Child to President. And I was like, that is so creepy. And then I started reading Laura Hershey and her talk, and it was like I was hearing myself, and I got really tripped out, and I thought like maybe like I had been reincarnated, but that couldn't have happened because she died in 2010. So I was like, it was just really trippy. I feel like a fucking vessel or something, like science fiction or something. These women are like showing up in my head and like making me say their words. It's really weird.
Well, and kind of how you said it was about when she fell in Arizona. The same thing happened to me like a week ago.
I think it was cute.
And I was like, this is just weird because I'm reading the book now, and it's like you said, it almost feels like she was talking to you, and I was feeling the same thing, and like those thoughts were validated. I don't know. The other thing I found
interesting was talking about going to see the MDA headquarters. When any of you been there?
No.
Yeah, and she did the compound or whatever. Now, are they still in Arizona, or did they move to Chicago?
I think, I'm not sure, but when I visited the University of Arizona, we drove up to see the headquarters, and I was just one of the things my family still laughs about is the world-renowned art collection, and she talked about that in the book about how like they were going to give it away or something. I don't know, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember going to visit, and my family was very turned off by the fact that they had this well, we don't know if they spent money on it or what the deal was, but the place was like a palace in the mountains.
Yeah, I never really even thought about what it would look like there, like what the headquarters look like. And you know, I really wonder what she would have said at the the rebranding message or whatever that they were coming out with. Or I'm very curious to see what her take is on that. Yeah.
I really appreciated that. I'm sure TK can relate to this. It really represented a very specific generation in the U.S. I mean, she's a little older than me, but not much, and her childhood experiences were so spot on for me. And if you read her other book about summer camp, super classic early 70s summer camp experience. And I really feel like she was telling my story. And I'm also an atheist, and I grew up in a very religious environment. And so I appreciated her cynicism and her snark about it, but I also was sometimes disappointed that her cynical tone would turn off some readers who would be offended by it. And I do know a few people who are fairly religious who were not able to see the bigger story because they were offended by her sarcasm about religion. And so I feel like that was a missed opportunity, though it spoke to me so well that I appreciated it for myself.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, because I wanted more of that. That was what I was craving throughout, because I like her, am not very spiritual, not, non-religious, said I was an atheist for many years. And I know this sounds very strange, but this book really hit hard. It was almost a spiritual experience. And for someone that's not a spiritual person, it's really weird. Like I said, I feel like, for me to say, like, I feel like she's here, you know what I mean? Like that's not something an atheist says very, very well, so it's very weird for me. But I mean, I'm very curious about Charleston. I love Southern writers for that. They do such a good job with setting and like the feel and like Pat Conroy, who wrote The Prince of Tides. Like that book is like so luscious. It's like all about, South Carolina and like the drawl and it's just such a beautiful story, and it made me want to live there. And then I read her Charleston, and I'm like looking up Charleston, and I'm like trying to see the sidewalks that she would ride her wheelchair down, and I'm wondering where she's buried, if she's buried. And I'm like, I feel like almost like when people go see Anne Frank, and like it's like the kind of same thing. It's like I want to go there and like see where she came from and like see her family, or it's really trippy. I don't know.
I think I kind of understand. It's almost like your identity has been validated or confirmed by
Yeah.
reading that story. And like what Elena was talking about before you came here, Elena, I was talking about how I grew up in a rehab hospital, and the part of the book where she mentions going back to the nursing home to visit a friend or something. I forget which book it was in, but she describes going to a nursing home, and it's like, that's me, you know. So,
Yeah, I lived in a nursing home as a teenager
right.
for about 15 months, and that spoke to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful, and I think that's a generational thing that she captured. But I also love hearing from younger people that her voice still speaks to you so much, which is really awesome. I feel like she stole my story. You know, hey, wait, that was mine.
Yeah, no. And I felt like I was like, because it's like I said, I was writing things and I didn't even realize I was talking like her. Like I didn't even like I was using words that she uses without, reading her ever, and so it's like I feel like she's still very much with us, and and just the way she talks about her body and the way she talks about pain and the way she talks about moving and all of these things, managing attendance, all of this stuff, it's still so relevant. But I never had an Ernest and Jennings wheelchair, but it still kind of fascinates me why she had an Ernest and Jennings wheelchair in the late 2000s when she could have easily have had I know I had a wheelchair in 95, so I know she could have gotten the wheelchair I had. But
yeah, but if you were raised with the Everson Jennings chair, you were so disappointed when they changed them. These were these metal tanks.
Oh, the Everson Jones, the 3P, when that first 3P wheelchair came out, it was amazing.
And you can repair them yourself. And all the newer ones, I stopped being able to repair my own chairs. I used to change the brushes in the motors, and I could pop open the joystick and clean the micro switches and put it back together, and my chair worked. It was amazing. And so I totally missed.
why would it go away?
Everything went plastic. Everything went plastic, and the reality is those E&J chairs were really heavy, and the frames were not that stable. I mean, my frames were welded over and over because they cracked and things like that. So, I think these chairs are sturdier. They're more adjustable. They're more comfortable. But there was something that was really liberating and fired up. Well, come on. You know how I'm not afraid to take shit apart and put it back together, and I'm so do-it-yourself. It was that kind of chair, so it really appealed to me,
Yeah. I could see, it's funny. I knew she had other options, so I knew it was there was just an attachment to that chair that, there was, she just was being really stubborn about it, But I kind of wonder, would she still be in it now? Would she still, in 2016, would she still be demanding her Ernest and Jennings chair?
No, she wouldn't. I promise you. I did find up a while ago. One thing that really struck me in her introduction was her description of her almost obligation to entertain people. It was her job to tell stories. When she calls them nearly two tales, and how if someone's going to drive her, she'll tell them a story, and it's part of her payment to them. But she'll use them and tell them, but also as an educator. I think she didn't articulate herself as an educator so much, but I know she embraced that identity as much. She wasn't just a storyteller. And she was always explaining.
I think that's kind of part of the Southern storytelling tradition.
Well, I used to say to my friends, give me any object in this room and I'll tell a story about it. And I used to love to tell stories growing up. I would love to tell, practice, oral storytelling and stuff. I remember I was in a creative, like a creative program, like for gifted children. And that was one of my like talents that I presented, was I told a story in front of like a huge audience. And so that storytelling is a survival tool that she says it's like part of a sentence in the I think it's the first chapter or something like that. And I thought, oh my God, like that, I want that tattooed on my arm. Storytelling as a survival tool, because it is. And that's, you know, and you think of Alice Wong and the Disability Visibility Project, and you think of Dear Juliana, and you think of all of these things. It's like, no, we can't really move our bodies, but damn it, we can tell a story. And it's everything. It's that recording that history, you know. And the fact that we all have the ability, that many of us are very strong writers, you know, many of us know how to tell a story. I think that says something kind of unique about us.
All right, we got another characteristic for the Foxworthy list. It's another characteristic for the Foxworthy list.
No, I mean, and I know that, you know, I get cross disability, I really do, but I do have an allegiance to, you know, to this experience. And
But you know what's funny though? Like, while we were talking, the word community kept popping in my brain. So I went and looked up the definition once more, and it's like, you know, a common set of experiences, and that to me is what's so interesting. And I like being able to communicate with people that automatically understand my perspective, where I don't have to give the whole backstory. And you know, and it's a Emily keeps saying it's weird. To me, it's a warm feeling where you have that sense of commonality. And I just, you know, I frequently write in the group 3 cheers for community. I really do mean that.
I feel like we're automatic siblings almost. Like it's just some kind of like, like it was so interesting this weekend when I had that party at the house, and like Allie and I were talking after the party, and she was like, Emily, I've never been in a room with that many adults that have what I have, and it was really surreal. Like she said that the last time I did that was when I was 10 years old at camp, and she's like, she said, as an adult, I've never been around in person, like real life, with that many people, you know? And it was just special. It was really magical, kind of, just to be in this room with all of these other people that we all had permobiles. We could have had a gang. Like we could have had some kind of weird road gang. And
Yeah, I was jealous that you guys got together. I'm like, damn it, like I wish I.
it was wild. It was so weird, you know, and I would take people on tours of my bedroom and bathroom, and they were talking about, like, asking me things, and it was like I was showing them like my shower and my shower chair, talking about like, I don't know, but it was just this like weird understanding, you know. I don't know. It was really cool.
I've had the experience. I mean, I feel like I have the benefit of many years of high exposure to a lot of people with my disability, which that community of camaraderie with the neuromuscular disease is pretty special. But it's also been expanded over the last 20 years to be very cross disability for me. And the funniest thing, if you have a bunch of people, it doesn't matter if they all have the same disabilities, but if we're all wheelchair users and/or our attendants, I mean, all of a sudden, the conversation inevitably goes down the urination rabbit hole. And we all end up on that topic. And we don't do it in mixed company. We don't do it when there's other people with non-physical disabilities or non-disabled people unless they're care providers. But we always end up talking about PIF. And one of the things, and Judy Human once said, funniest damn thing, she said, the thing that separates disabled people from each other isn't the diagnosis, whether or not you can pee independently. And I was like, yes, yes. And then I thought about what happened when I got my catheter. It changed me, and it changed my status. Because all of a sudden, I wasn't one of those people doing PMAS anymore. And I feel like I lost a little bit of my community. I was like, I'm not one of those people now wondering, where am I going to piss? Where am I going to piss? It was very funny. This funny identity stuff. And that's the word I really miss. I met Harriet McBryde Johnson when she was on a tour here. And she signed my book, and I saw her speak after I'd read it. I wanted to shake her and say, how did you know all my story? You know, but she was exhausted, so I didn't really get to talk to her. She was on tour, and I have no idea how she managed to do that. But and probably a year or two later, she passed away, and I really wish I could talk to her about the layers of community. Like, you know, like TK, you mentioned that one feeling, you know, that one feeling of community, but being people who are most like you in their experience. And then for me, I have more recent experiences of warm feeling with a more cross disability context. And I would love to talk to her about it. She was an attorney representing people in disability claims. And I'm a benefits counselor doing not quite that work, but still working with all different kinds of people. And I got this amazing compliment from someone last month, a social worker, who brought his client to talk to me. And I emailed him and said, thank you both for coming. It was great to meet you guys. And he said, I want you to know, this is the first
disability rights in the movement for
Hold on,
25
I'm sorry, I'm
years
so sorry.
and earned.
My thing just started going off. Sorry.
okay. So the social worker said, this is the first time in a year and a half that I've been working with this guy that he hasn't lied to someone. I mean, the guy had severe mental illness, and he was very embarrassed about his diagnosis, and he was very embarrassed about his living situation. And he lives in a board and care facility. And I asked him very direct questions about where he lived, if he liked it, if he was looking at an independent living option. I asked about what kind of care he would need if he didn't live in the board and care, if he had access to services. And he's not delusional, but he would make up fantasies to try and hide his real situation when he talked to people. And he didn't do that with me. I didn't know it was an issue. And I told the caseworker, I said, I think he got it that I embrace him as my people. You know, Emily, you described that one feeling. You said, these are my people. And I felt that with him. And I had no idea that he had issues with Sharon. And he just opened up to me like he never did to anybody else. So I think there's something in identity politics. There's also something about how we enter it. So if we go in as open as we can, we get this warm feeling back. I went into it really open, and he met me halfway, and he really didn't normally have that capacity. So that was a really cool lesson for me. He was my people, even though we have totally different disabilities.
Well, and I get kind of what you're saying. There are times where I connect with people that don't have an MD, because I mean, I work in, you know, disability services, so I see it all. And there are times where I really connect with people and their experience. And sometimes, you know, but there's still, I mean, hands down, if somebody with an MD walks in, there's no fighting it. It's almost immediate. I'm very like.
So do you feel like you get almost too familiar?
Huh?
I've had, in my professional work, I've had someone come in with a disability that I knew, oh, that's an MD, just like mine, or very similar to mine. And sometimes my familiarity is almost too much. Like I forget my professional hat, and I open the door too wide. Does that make sense? Almost.
Yeah.
No, I get kind of tough lovey, which is weird for me. Is I get kind of like I'm a little, I think in a way, sometimes I'm even harder on people with what I have, because I don't know. It's harder. I have to like kind of, I don't know. Yeah, in the advocacy world, I know how hard it's going to be, so I want to give them as much information, and I want to help them. Sometimes I overwhelm them. I think sometimes I'm a little too hard. I think sometimes I overhelp. It's very weird. Like, it depends kind of on the person, but I know that whatever it is, though, I connect immediately.
Yeah.
I just, like, but it was, I saw a kid came into my office the other day with his brother, and he was in a chair, and he wasn't able to drive his wheelchair. He was just kind of like, his brother was kind of guiding his joystick a little bit. He was having a hard time getting his hand up to his joystick. And he came in, and I was addressing questions to him. And the brother was kind of pulling me towards, the brother was kind of like directing questions at me, but expecting me to make eye contact. But I kept looking at the student, and I said, what's your disability? What do you have? And he said, I said, do you mind me asking? And he said, I have Duchenne. And I said, well, I'm in a group. And I said, I'm on Facebook. I'm like, do you have Facebook? He said, no. I said, okay. Well, I'm in a group, and it's for adults with neuromuscular disabilities. We talk about all kinds of stuff. I said, I'm having a party at my house this weekend, and I would, if you'd like to come, I'd love to have you. We're going to be serving, alcohol, and it's going to be, kind of wild and different from anything you've probably ever seen, but you're welcome to come. And the brother was just kind of looking at me, and I was like, and then he had to sign a piece of paper, and I'm like, oh, can you sign this paper? And he looked at me, and he's like, no. And then the brother's like, I'll do it. And I said, okay. And, and the brother was like signing for him. And you could tell he just didn't really have a lot of, I don't understand why the brother was driving his wheelchair. Like, I'm like, why? And I was so tempted to just be like, you could drive your chair with like, another system, and I can, but I just felt awkward. Like, I just had to let it happen. And he just seemed like so afraid of me. And he ran away. But
I'm afraid of you too.
it was funny. I don't know. But this book, yeah, it was really cool. I'm gonna keep watching videos and kind of just listening and paying attention. Mary Jo, what are you gonna take away? Are you gonna do anything different from after reading this book?
Probably read more, because I'm not much of a reader to begin with, and I think that this really inspired me to. I'm really glad you guys started the book club, because I've always wanted, like, my mom's in a book club, and they just, I don't know what they just focus on their reading, what they read, but I always, again, that's a situation where they meet at people's houses, and like, it's hard for me to be a part of that, but I'm just really glad that you guys started this, and I'm looking forward to the next book too. I downloaded that, so
Cool.
Can I ask, are you not much of a reader because books are physically hard to hold? Or
I think growing up, that's why I didn't like, because they were physically hard to hold, and I mean, even in college, it was hard to study because the books were so heavy, and I'd have a double set of books, one at school, one at home, and so it just. But now that I can read, like, now that technology has enabled us to read and use things so much easier, it makes it so much easier. So I think that, like, it's really that's encouraged me.
I had gotten to the point where I wasn't reading any books at all.
Yeah,
And then when I discovered Bookshare, I read all the time. It is the best $50 a year I spend.
Yeah.
I get it for free.
Well, I'm subsidizing your Bookshare account. Thank you very much, Emily.
I would happily pay that. I don't really use it. I just use it at school to show students. I read mostly my Kindle on my Amazon app, but I found myself reading more. And it's funny, I was a literature major in college. Like, reading is my middle name in a way.
Yeah.
But I was getting away from it. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of it had to do with the physicalness of reading.
Yeah.
I had no idea how much of a deterrent it is, but it really is. When I can read smoothly without having to put in a lot of physical effort, I read more.
Yeah, exactly.
But I didn't really connect the two. I just thought I was being like, I don't know, not interested or, just kind of lazy about it. And then
Yeah.
I have not done well with the transition. And I don't know if it's a visual or a physical experience of it, but I grew up reading 10 books a week, and that's how I got to my teen years. And as it got harder, I would stay up till 3 a.m. reading books in bed, but I always had a book tucked beside me in my wheelchair. And I definitely don't read as much as I used to, even though I have all of these different avenues. There's Bookshare, there's Amazon. I don't use the Kindle, but I use the software on my computer. I have an attendant who scans things that I can't find in electronic format, and you scan them for me. I read PDFs. I read in my bed on my laptop. I have audiobooks through the state program, and I have all those things, but there's nothing like that paper book for me. And I don't, even though it's been years since that's been easy for me, I still have a hard time with it.
I have a really hard time with when I read on my Kindle, like my Kindle reader, because it looks like a book, like the page doesn't glare. And I believe in that technology where that kind of flat, matte, like page. And to me, like, even though it's not a book, I really feel the most comfortable on my Kindle because of that non-computer like shine.
Yeah.
It's as close as I can get. It's helped a lot.
Well, I would be happy to use your books, but I just can't. My hands don't work at all. So, you do what you do. One time I was away for the weekend, and I called Emily from upstate New York. I was like, Emily, I don't have internet access. Do me a favor, please. Please email a chapter of my book. And I gave her the name of the book, and she emailed me a couple of chapters of a book I was reading.
Yeah, no, I wish I could use a Kindle, but you have to require too much hand. It has to be set exactly right. And
even the new one where you just tap.
I haven't tried the new one. That would work better for me, but it would have to be put up on a book stand and be at the right angle. And yeah,
The Paperwhite is phenomenal. Like it's super. I mean, you don't even really have to push. It just does it. But the thing is the angle. Like I have to kind of like I can kind of rest it. Hold on one quick second. I'm gonna get it really quick. So
I mounted my phone on the chair, and I can basically read from Bookshare right in the phone now.
I kind of wonder, and I've never tried it before, but I kind of wonder if an eraser. So, another thing is you can adjust the size of the font.
Yeah.
So but I can adjust it, on like, the moment I want to. So sometimes when I'm laying in a weird position and I can't see the little font, I just tap it, and then it's very, very easy to tap.
Yeah, I can't reach that high up on the screen, unfortunately.
But I'm wondering though, if you had this.
Yeah. A stylus.
It works.
Yeah, most styluses don't work unless you press harder.
Really?
Yeah. I can barely reach my cell phone.
Damn it, it doesn't work, yeah. Hmm.
But that's why I do everything on my laptop or computer. I have my laptop on my bed, and I use a trackball to navigate everything, and that works really well. And then I have my desktop on my desk. Hey guys, I'm exhausted, and I need to go. But it was so lovely to see you.
It
Yeah.
was really good to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming, and
I wasn't intending to stay this long. I also tired. But
Say that
I
again.
appreciate you guys staying and talking. And I thought it. I mean, it was small, but you know, it was better than nothing.
I think I'm glad about how awesome it was, and maybe more people will come.
Oh yeah, maybe.
yeah, no, well, it was small, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your experiences and
Yeah.
for meeting. And I hope I see you at the next one. We're doing telethons next.
All right. Have a good
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.